There's a moment that happens to almost every founder, and nobody puts it in the pitch deck. It doesn't show up in the investor update. It doesn't show up in the highlight reel you post after a big quarter. It shows up at 2 in the morning, when the office is empty, the notifications have finally stopped, and for the first time all day, you're alone with your own mind. And your mind isn't quiet. It's running numbers. It's replaying a conversation from 6 hours ago. It's asking you a question you've been avoiding for months. What happens if this doesn't work? If you've built something from nothing, you know this moment. You've lived in it. And here's the part that should scare you a little. The people who study human collapse, burnout, breakdowns, the slow unraveling that happens behind the confident LinkedIn posts, they've found a pattern. It's not the failed founders who get hit hardest. It's the successful ones, the ones who won. Because somewhere in the climb, they stopped being a person who built a company, and they became a company that used to be a person. That's the warning. And it's older than Silicon Valley, older than venture capital, older than the idea of a startup itself. It comes from a group of men who ran empires, armies, and fortunes almost 2,000 years before anyone coined the phrase founder mode. They were the original high performers. And they left behind a warning so precise, so specific to what you're going through right now, that it's almost unsettling how well it applies. Let's start with one of them, a man who, at the peak of his power, controlled more resources than any tech founder alive today could imagine. He commanded armies. He ruled over tens of millions of people. Every morning, an entire empire waited on his decisions, and every single night, this man sat down and wrote to himself. Not for an audience, not for a legacy. He wrote because he understood something that most people who reach the top never figure out. Power doesn't fix you. Status doesn't fix you. Winning doesn't fix you. If anything, it makes the cracks louder, because now there's nowhere to hide from them. His name was Marcus Aurelius, and what he wrote to himself has survived for centuries, because it wasn't about ruling an empire. It was about ruling himself. And the core of it, the thing he kept coming back to, night after night, is the exact thing that separates founders who build something lasting from founders who quietly burn out chasing a version of success that was never going to satisfy them. Here it is, stripped down to the version you actually need to hear. You are pouring your energy into things you cannot control. And it's killing you slowly, one decision at a time. Think about your last bad week. Really think about it. What was actually eating you alive? Chances are, it wasn't the work itself. It was a competitor's move you couldn't predict. It was an investor who went cold after seeming interested. It was a customer who churned for reasons that had nothing to do with your product. It was what someone said about you in a group chat you weren't even in. None of that was yours to control. And yet, you spent hours, maybe days, running it through your head like you could rewind time and change the outcome through sheer force of thought. This is the trap almost every serious entrepreneur falls into, and it has a name in Stoic philosophy. It's called the dichotomy of control. It sounds academic, but it's brutally simple once you see it. Everything that happens to you splits into two categories: things you control and things you don't. Your effort, your decisions, your reactions, your standards, your discipline. That's category one. The market, other people's opinions, the economy, whether a competitor gets lucky, whether an investor says yes, whether the algorithm favors your launch that week. That's category two. And here's the brutal math. Nobody tells you when you're grinding through your 20s trying to build something real, Your suffering is almost always proportional to how much energy you spend on category 2. You didn't start a company to manage your anxiety about things outside your control. But that's what most founders end up doing full-time, without ever noticing the shift. You check the metrics obsessively, not because checking changes them, but because it feels like doing something. You replay the investor call, not because replaying it changes the answer, but because your brain is desperate for control it doesn't have. You read the one negative comment 40 times, while ignoring the 50 positive ones, because somewhere along the way, your identity got fused to outcomes you were never actually steering. This is where it gets dangerous. Because in the founder world, we've built an entire culture around confusing exhaustion with virtue. We celebrate the guy who slept 4 hours a night, like it's proof of commitment. We treat anxiety as a badge of seriousness. If you're not stressed, are you even building something big enough? And that culture is quietly training an entire generation of talented, driven people to burn their nervous systems down, trying to control things that were never theirs to control in the first place. Marcus Aurelius ran an empire under constant threat, plague sweeping through his territories, wars on multiple fronts, betrayal from people he trusted, and he still managed to write, calmly, that a person's peace comes from within, not from circumstances outside them. Not because he was naive about the stakes. He knew the stakes better than almost anyone in history. He wrote it because he'd figured out the one lesson that separates leaders who last from leaders who collapse under their own weight. You don't get to choose what happens. You only get to choose what you do about it. And the moment you accept that, something in your chest actually loosens. Not because the problems disappear, but because you stop fighting battles you were never equipped to win in the first place. Here's where you have to be honest with yourself for a second. How much of your stress this month came from things you actually had power over? And how much came from things you were trying to control through pure worry, as if enough anxious energy could somehow bend reality in your favor? Most founders, if they're being real, will admit the ratio is upside down. You're spending 80% of your emotional energy on the 20% you can't touch, and the 20% you actually could be improving. Your discipline, your systems, your own decision-making gets whatever energy is left over, which, by the end of a long week, is basically nothing. This is the first warning, but it's not the one that should scare you the most. Because there's a deeper trap hiding underneath this one, something the Stoics were even more specific about, and it's the one that actually destroys founders from the inside. It's not about what you're trying to control. It's about who you've let yourself become in the process. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it in your own life. That's where we're going next. Who you've let yourself become in the process. Sit with that for a second, because this is where the real danger lives. There's a slow, almost invisible shift that happens to founders who put everything into building something. It doesn't happen in one dramatic moment. It happens in 1,000 small ones. The first time you skip a friend's birthday because of a launch. The first time you check Slack during your kid's soccer game. The first time someone asks how you're doing, and you answer with a revenue number instead of an actual feeling. None of these moments feel like betrayal in the moment. They feel like commitment. They feel like sacrifice for something bigger. And that's exactly what makes this trap so effective. It disguises itself as dedication. Here's the question that matters more than any KPI on your dashboard right now. If your company failed tomorrow, completely, permanently, with no chance of rebuilding, who would you be the morning after? Sit with that. Don't rush past it the way you rush past everything else. If the honest answer scares you, if there's a part of you that genuinely doesn't know who you'd be without the title, the traction, the identity of founder, you're not alone, and you're not broken. You've just fallen into the exact trap that history's most disciplined minds spent their lives warning people about. You've fused your identity to something that was never meant to hold it. This is where a man named Epictetus becomes impossible to ignore. He didn't start his life with power. He started it in chains, literally, as an enslaved man in the Roman Empire, at the mercy of an owner who at one point broke his leg out of cruelty, and Epictetus is said to have reacted with almost eerie calm, simply observing that the leg was broken, nothing more. Not because he didn't feel pain, because he had already drawn a hard line, early in life, between what belonged to him and what didn't. His body could be owned. His circumstances could be controlled by someone else entirely. But his judgments, his character, his inner response to the world, that piece stayed his, no matter what was done to him. Eventually, he gained his freedom and became one of the most respected teachers of his era, and his core teaching still cuts through modern life, like it was written yesterday. He said that people aren't disturbed by what happens to them. They're disturbed by the story they tell themselves about what happens to them. A funding round falling through isn't inherently devastating. It becomes devastating the moment you attach a story to it. A story that says, this means I'm not good enough. This means I've failed. This means my worth as a person just dropped along with my valuation. That last part is the second warning, and it's the one that actually gets founders. Not the failed round, not the missed quarter. The quiet, unspoken belief that your worth as a human being rises and falls with your business metrics. Once that belief takes root, every dip in performance stops being a business problem and starts being an identity crisis. And you cannot run a company clearly, calmly, or wisely, while your nervous system is treating every setback like a threat to your existence. Look at how this plays out in real founders. The ones who eventually talk about it publicly. Years later, once the dust has settled, they describe a period where the company was thriving on paper while they were quietly falling apart underneath it. Sleep gone. Relationships strained to breaking. A body that stopped sending normal signals of stress and started sending serious ones. And almost every single time, when you ask what actually happened, the answer isn't the business got hard. Businesses are always hard. The answer is, I stopped being able to tell the difference between me and the company. Every investor email felt like a verdict on their soul. Every slow month felt like proof they were a fraud. They weren't running a business anymore. They were performing a referendum on their own worth, daily, with no way to opt out. This is the warning every founder needs to hear before it's too late. Not as a cute quote for a slide, but as something you actually let change how you operate. Your company is a thing you built. It is not the thing that makes you real. You existed before it. You'll exist after it in whatever form that takes. The moment you can hold that truth steady, something shifts in how you make decisions. You stop making choices from fear of losing your identity and start making choices from clarity about what actually serves the mission. So what do you actually do with this? Not as a philosophy lecture, as something you can use this week. Start by separating your identity from your outcomes on purpose, not by accident. Write down, honestly, what you'd still be proud of about yourself if the company never existed. Your discipline, your integrity in how you treat people, Your ability to keep showing up when things get hard. Those traits are yours. They don't belong to the business. They came with you into it, and they'll leave with you no matter what happens to it. Then practice what the Stoics called voluntary discomfort. Deliberately put yourself in small, controlled versions of the losses you're afraid of. Spend a day without checking the metrics. Go 24 hours without your phone confirming that everything's still fine. It sounds small. It isn't. Because what you're actually training is the part of your brain that panics when certainty disappears. And that panic is exactly what makes founders make short-term, fear-driven decisions instead of long-term, clear-headed ones. And finally, keep a version of what Marcus Aurelius did every single night. Not for productivity, not to optimize your morning routine. Sit down and ask yourself, honestly, today, where did I spend energy on things I couldn't control? Where did I let an outcome define who I think I am? You don't need a fancy system for this. A notebook and 5 honest minutes will do more for your long-term stability than another book on scaling ever will. Here's the truth underneath all of it. The founders who last, the ones who build something real over 10, 20, 30 years without hollowing themselves out in the process. They're not the ones who avoided hardship. They're the ones who stopped needing the outcome to be perfect in order to feel like they were enough. They separated the game from their identity early, and because of that, they could actually play the game well, without the game slowly eating them alive. You didn't start this journey to become someone who can't sit still without checking a dashboard. You started it because you believed you could build something that mattered. That belief is still in there. It's just buried under a few years of confusing your worth with your metrics. Dig it back out, starting today. If this actually hit something real for you, that's not an accident, it's the whole reason this channel exists. Every week, Stoic Founder breaks down exactly this, the mental side of building something real, the part nobody puts in the pitch deck. If you want more of this, hit like so it reaches the next founder who needs to hear it. Share it with someone on your team who's carrying more than they're saying out loud. And subscribe to Stoic Founder so you don't miss what's coming next. You've got this. Now go build, with your eyes open this time.